Good afternoon, APUSH. I'm back again with a brief tutorial on some studying that I might consider doing in preparation for our test on Friday. I want to alert you to a particular resource that is very rich, one that I would highly encourage you beginning to use now at the beginning of the year and use throughout the year rather than cramming right before that big exam, May 5th, 2017. So you're going to head to the College Board website. You can see the URL at the top here, collegeboard.org. Once you've arrived, you're going to come to the top here and click on AP. Once in this section, you're going to find our AP course. Then you're going to scroll down on the U.S. History page and find this link to the exam, course and exam description, which is a PDF. Of course, you want to tell the College Board, sure, I'll open this up. Now, don't get intimidated. This is a 155-page document. Not all of it is pertinent and useful for you, but there are some really useful points in this bound copy of the course and exam description that I want to point you to. So, once you're in this PDF, you're going to want to scroll down and find, you'll notice around page 31, the curriculum guide begins with the first period. We're out of that, so I want to scroll to period 2. Right? Within this, what the College Board has done is it has broken each of the periods into manageable chunks. These chunks you'll see appear as key concept 2.1, 2.2, etc. What I would do is I would take these key concepts, right? Copy the key concept into a Word document, in your case, a Google document. Okay? Because it's a key concept, I'm going to bold it. And because I want to be able to read it nice and clearly, I do a little bit of change to the font. Right? I think I can even see this a little bit bigger. Right? This sentence might seem as a really loaded sentence, one that upon first reading might seem a little bit confusing. But if you think back to class, this sentence should actually make perfect sense. So when I read this, Europeans developed a variety of colonization and migration patterns influenced by different imperial goals, cultures, and the varied North American environments where they settled, and they competed with each other and the American Indians for resources. Now, in thinking back to class, a lot of this begins to make sense. For example, we have studied the colonization patterns of the English, the French, and the Spanish. We looked at the goals or the motives. For instance, might call to mind that the Spanish have a goal of God, gold, and glory. Might also think about the varied North American environments. Consider the fact that the English, upon first arriving in Jamestown, struggle a bit because of the environment, whereas the families migrating to Massachusetts have a little bit better of a life expectancy due to the environment that they encounter. Of course, the competition with Native Americans is going to increase warfare, war over land, especially here in the 13 colonies. So that key concept is something that guides this first part of the review guide that the College Board has put together. But I'm not done. I go back to the guide and I want to look at some of the major points that they make underneath each one. So for Roman numeral 1, for the first big part, sorry, I'm not wanting to boldface this, okay? I have this sentence now, okay? And I'm going to begin, I should probably make this more of an outline in keeping with the way this is organized. And then I copy this statement into, right? So now I'm recreating the outline. I'm bringing in the words of the College Board, but I don't want to stop there. What I want to do is I want to be able to make sense of what the College Board is trying to get me to understand and trying to get me to see. So when I read this part right here about the Spanish, Okay? The Spanish efforts to extract wealth from the land led them to develop institutions based on subjugating native peoples, converting them to Christianity, incorporating them along with enslaved and free Africans into the Spanish colonial society. That particular statement to me means that I need to go back into my notes and begin to figure out where on earth do I remember anything about the particular Spanish method of colonization. Well, efforts to extract wealth from the land makes me remember that encomienda system. And I go in and I define that word. I make sure I have an understanding that the Spanish effort at first was the encomienda system. Then I move on. Institutions based on subjugating native peoples. Well, I remember that the Spanish are going to set up a bunch of missions, like in San Diego or San Francisco, right? I also look at this last part, their relationships with native populations. And I remember that word mestizo appears in chapter 3. Was it 3 or was it 4? Here I am. Can you hear me? I'm flipping back. I'm trying to see and trying to remember where that mestizo term appeared. Because, oh, there it is, page 79. Okay? So that's mixed European and Indian blood, but it's one way in which the Spanish set themselves apart from the English in terms of their colonizing, which goes back to this top point that the colonizers had different economic and imperial goals involving the land and labor, as well as their relationship with native populations. So what you'll see in going back and forth between this outline, and if I continue, I'd add my French and Dutch, I copy right into my document. And then again, I would be adding critical vocabulary words, events, right? One event that I might want to include up here, even though it might make an appearance later in this unit outline, is the Pueblo Revolt, a moment when the Spanish and the natives have an all-out war. Okay? Notice how I broke the sentence up into manageable chunks. I started with what this first part of the sentence had to say. Then I moved into the other part. Of course, I'm beginning to consider what I have read in the textbook. And in the textbook, I'm looking for those black, bold vocabulary words, along with major events that I, Ms. Hepler, have stressed in class. And I'll give you a case in point. If I come on down here to the English, I'm going to add them next. Okay, I begin to break down this section. English colonization efforts attracted a comparatively large number of male and female British migrants, as well as other European migrants. Well, there's a couple of things that I know. I know that the pluralization or the European, the English colonization, this sets them apart. Okay, the motive of the English is an economic prosperity and religious freedom. So I might keep in mind that whereas the French are a little bit more interested in the fur trade, which I add, okay, the English are certainly going to be a little bit more of looking to, they have a profit motive and a religious motive, right? And I remember in Virginia, there's a profit motive. In New England, particularly in Massachusetts, there's a religious motive. Right? So I continue to copy and paste, and I overall am creating basically a giant outline. This outline can serve as a way to come back to, if you create it, you can come back to, and it serves as a way to easily review material all throughout the year. And you're creating this as you go along. What you might want to consider in the creation of this is the fact that each of these statements, this statement right here, this statement right here, this is what the College Board is arguing about American history. They're going to be testing you on these arguments that they make. It's your responsibility to come in with the knowledge about the events, the people, the vocabulary terms that fit within this particular structure. Of course, if you're curious about learning more or would like me to help you build your study guide, if you need help in the beginning here, I'm more than happy. Please just reach out and ask. Hope your studying goes well. The test will be Friday. Hasta luego.